Are interracial relationships actually good?
Mr. Reagan.
Now, before you watch this, please pause the video and go subscribe to my new channel, Alpha Critic. On Alpha Critic, I will review new movies and new TV shows. Even if you don't care about that stuff, give it a shot. I think you're really going to like it. The link is in the description below. Pause, subscribe, come back here. Okay, now on with the show. The other day, Donald Trump met with Nick Fuentes. Now, a lot of people on the left jumped at this glorious opportunity to call Donald Trump a white supremacist. After all, Nick Fuentes is, they believe, a white supremacist, and Donald Trump met with him. Therefore, Trump must be a white supremacist too, right? Well, turns out, Trump did not intend to meet with Nick Fuentes. He intended to meet with Kanye West, which he did. Kanye West, for some reason, brought along Nick Fuentes. I guess they're friends, I don't know. But claiming that because Donald Trump ended up having some kind of lunch or dinner or meeting or something with Nick Fuentes and therefore he must be a white supremacist. It's like saying during a Trump rally, Trump was out shaking hands with the crowd, and one of the people he shook hands with is like a known communist, right? And now we have to condemn Donald Trump. He's a supporter of communism. He shook that guy's hand. But Donald Trump didn't know who this guy was. He's just shaking people's hands. But anyway, that's the mentality of the left. I mean, they do whatever they can to try to, make Donald Trump look bad, make conservatives look bad. This is what the left does. Now, the reason that people think Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist Holocaust denier, as they put it, is that in one episode of his podcast, he read a comment from one of the fans of his show. And this fan was calculating the number of Jews that were killed in the Holocaust, and they were using cookies baked in an oven as an analogy. Now, this is, of course, a grotesque analogy. It's offensive to just about everyone. And Nick Fuentes was laughing about it, and I presume because the grotesque nature of the analogy was indeed so striking. But the point that the fan was trying to make was that he didn't believe that so many human bodies could have been incinerated, and so the number of people murdered in the Holocaust was lower, he thought, than the official count. Now, this has always seemed kind of like a bizarre debate to me. I'm not sure why anybody feels the need to be exactly precise about the number of people who were murdered in a genocide of millions. When millions of people are murdered, it's a tragedy of the highest severity imaginable. And I think that when you get over 1 million people, the numbers kind of lose meaning. 1 million, 100 million. We humans, we just don't have the ability to comprehend such numbers. So to debate the precise number is kind of absurd. However, there are some who I think like to be provocative by getting into such nonsensical debates and by comparing the incinerations of human bodies to baking cookies. I mean, it's obvious that this guy and his fans are trying to be provocative. So, I can see why some people find the stuff that Nick Fuentes says to be abhorrent because, yeah, it's pretty abhorrent. But of course, Trump had no idea who Nick Fuentes is, and Fuentes is a very well-spoken guy, so it makes sense that Trump would, after having met him, be somewhat impressed with him, so long as Nick didn't say anything too provocative. But of course, his attendance at this meeting does give leftists an opportunity to further mislead people about Trump being a white supremacist. And, this got me thinking about the time that I met Nick Fuentes when we got into a very quick debate about interracial marriage. That story in one moment. First, I have to sell you something. So, is investing in silver today a good idea? Colin Plume, from our friends at Noble Gold, thinks so. On the national desk, he explained that there had been a huge sell-off of silver because of its low price right now. But silver is the most useful industrial metal out there, and demand is soaring for electronics in electric cars and solar panel circuits as the green agenda speeds up. And as industries pick up after the pandemic supply chain issues, the trend down should reverse quickly, and silver will rocket. Don't miss this. Give the team at Noble Gold a call and join thousands of others who have taken advantage of this blip in the market. They'll guide you through the process and make it easy for you. And this month, you will get this stunning 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin with a qualified IRA of $20,000 or higher. They actually sent me one of these, and it is amazing. It's very, very heavy, but a very beautiful coin. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. It's the safest place to put your money right now. Call the team at 877-646-5347 and find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Now, the title of this video is, Are Interracial Relationships Really Good? And the answer to that question, in my view, is yes. Are they better than single-race relationships? No. They're no better, they're no worse, but the fact that they exist in the world is, in my view, a good thing. Now, you may find it surprising that I hold this view, as I am openly conservative and therefore clearly a vicious racist, but shockingly, no, I must not be that racist. Well, at least not viciously so. I do find Californians a bit off-putting. Is Californian a race? If not, it certainly should be. Okay, so in order for me to explain my position on this, let me tell you the story of the day I met Nick Fuentes. At CPAC, and this was in Washington, D.C., I went over to him. I shook his hand, and I asked him why he was against interracial marriage. And I asked him this because this was the only view that I knew certainly that I disagreed with him on. I mean, I wasn't entirely aware of all his political views because I don't watch his show and I never did any deep dive research into the guy. But anyway, and his reply was, I'm just against it. I just don't like it, I think is what he said. And so I made my case, trying to sway him a little bit. I said, okay, look, your problem is that you're a pretty good-looking guy. And you may not understand that for most guys, it's actually pretty difficult to find a girl that you like who also likes you back. And the same is true for many women. It's just hard for them to find any guy that loves them. And so when you have a world full of lonely people, you may want to give people the best opportunity to find love. And so it's a bit selfish, I think, for somebody who probably doesn't have a huge problem finding a woman who's going to like him to put an artificial barrier in the way of those who have a much harder time finding love. And his response, I'm not kidding, it was just, I don't know, I just don't like it. And like, fair enough, you know? I mean, sometimes the stuff that we believe is not rational. It's just what we feel. And you can't really argue against that. It's one of those agree to disagree situations. But you know, that is my reason for thinking that interracial relationships are a good thing. As a society, we should give people the most opportunity to find happiness as possible. And there are those who will argue that the white population is diminishing and that unless we change our perspective, white people will eventually go extinct. And in fact, there are some on the left who openly advocate for this outcome. But this is not going to happen. Despite the growing popularity of interracial relationships and the slow decline in the white birth rate, there is still a lot of white people in the world. And the vast majority of people still marry within their own race. White women in particular are the least likely demographic group to marry outside of their race. And so I just don't see white people disappearing anytime soon. And you know, I am sympathetic to those who are against interracial relationships. Most people consider that view utterly racist, but few consider that most people outside of the white race are in fact against interracial relationships. Go to any non-white country. Any country outside the United States, Europe, Canada, South Africa, and Australia. Go to any country that's not white people, and interracial relationships tend to be frowned upon. And so, although there are many people that would call Nick Fuentes a white supremacist for having a negative view of interracial relationships, none of those people ever call out the Japanese for having the same views, or Pakistanis, or Indians, or Black Americans.
And I'm sure no intelligent white person watching this show, in his or her right white mind, want black boys and black girls marrying their white sons and daughters, and in return introducing their grandchildren as half-brown, kinky-haired black people.
I wouldn't object to that.
Well, you wouldn't, but a lot of them would.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people know. This is the point.
What I'm trying to say is this. And you don't have it. You say you don't, but you don't have it. You really ain't going to have it. You're on the show and you got to say that. But
that's not true.
Why would you want to do that?
Because I don't think I'm any different from you see.
We much different.
I mean, I think society's made us different.
You know we're different. We're all together.
Society's made us different.
No, not society. God made us different.
No, we're just human beings. He made all of us.
We all, listen, bluebirds fly with bluebirds, red birds want to be with red birds. Listen, tell me when I'm wrong. Pigeons want to be with pigeons.
But
tell me when I'm wrong. They don't have intelligence, but yet they stay together. We should have more intelligence than them, right? Buzzards are with buzzards. Buzzards are with buzzards. Bluebirds are with bluebirds. They all are birds, but they got different cultures. The eagles like to hang out in the mountains. The buzzard like to fly around the desert. The bluebird like to fly around the trees and the grass. I don't see no black and white couples in England or America walking around proud holding their children. I'd rather go and be my own. I have a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife. They look like me. We're all happy, and I don't have no trouble. I have no trouble. I ain't that much in love with no woman to go through all that hell. Ain't no one woman that good.
think it's sad that
it ain't sad because I want my child to look like me. Every intelligent person wants his child to look like him. I'm sad because I want to blot out my race and lose my beautiful identity. Chinese love Chinese. They love the little slanted-eyed, pretty brown-skinned babies. Pakistanis love their culture. Jewish people love their culture. A lot of Catholics don't want to marry number Catholics. They want the religion to stay the same. Who want to spot up yourself and kill your race? You a hater of your people if you don't want to stay who you are. You shame what God made you. God didn't make no mistake. And you can't take no Chinese man and give him no Puerto Rican woman and holler about we're in love and you emotionally in love and physically, but really they're not happy because she's going to hear some Puerto Rican music, he's going to hear some Chinese music. And they're going to be clashing all the time. It's just nature. You can do what you want, but it's nature to want to be with your own. I want to be with my own. I love my people. That's all. I don't hate nobody.
They don't see the same views as racist if those views are held by non-whites. It's an absurd kind of racial bias, and yet it's extremely prevalent. So look, if you're going to say that having a negative view of interracial relationships makes you a racist, then you basically have to say that the vast majority of non-white people around the world are racists. And actually, that's probably true, but I digress. For those who have an aversion to interracial relationships, I kind of understand this. I think that there are significant problems that arise when you date somebody or marry somebody from another culture. And I think that that is the real problem, the cultural difference. I mean, I've experienced this myself. I dated a lot of girls from Eastern Europe, and problems arise. I assure you. We're both white, but we're from fairly different cultures, and the differences between American and Russian culture, that pales in comparison to the difference between, say, African culture and Swiss culture. And yet you do find Swiss women who occasionally marry African men. And this does not always end well. The problem is that these cultural differences, they're not always immediately obvious. There are a lot of things that are taken for granted as normal within one culture that may be considered completely insane in another culture. And I've heard some pretty horrific stories of interracial relationships gone wrong because a woman had no concept of the misogynistic nature of a culture she was marrying into, for instance. But at the end of the day, I can't be against interracial relationships because frankly, some of my best friends are the products of interracial relationships. My friend Ryan, when I was a kid, had a black father, white mother. My friend Kurt, white father, Japanese mother. Of course, both of these relationships ended in divorce, so maybe they're not the best examples. But these were two very good friends of mine, and I believe that the world has been made immeasurably better by their existence. And I myself am both Scottish and German, which, I mean, I'm practically mixed race myself. And so look, I'm not against interracial relationships. However, I do think our culture encourages them way too much. I mean, they're not a bad thing, but they're not especially good either. They're just a thing. And yet Hollywood really tries to promote these relationships in every way possible. Hollywood inevitably depicts white relationships as negative. The husband is either abusive or a buffoon. If it's a black couple, the wife is always dominant. And if it's an interracial couple, well, only then is the marriage depicted as normal. And if it's a gay couple, well then, it's a perfect relationship. The show Modern Family actually rejected many of these cliches, and I think that's why it's an enormously successful show. Makes a lot of sense to me. But you know what? I really hate seeing interracial relationships in movies and TV shows and commercials. And you might think, well, that's kind of weird. You just spent the entire video defending interracial relationships. But look, I hate them because it's obviously done to be provocative. And it's annoying because it's not provocative. Every time that this is depicted in like an interracial kiss or whatever, I imagine there's some idiot producer or writer or director saying, oh, this is really gonna make all those racist rednecks in America uncomfortable. And they should be uncomfortable, those disgusting bigots. Maybe one day they'll stop being so bigoted. It's such an elitist mindset. And it's delusional. It's delusional and elitist. And I just find that really annoying. Because the truth is, I don't really like seeing people kiss on screen at all. They rarely shoot on-screen kisses in a way that's decent anymore. The kiss in Back to the Future, now that was an elegant kiss. But the stuff they show in movies today, I mean, I'd rather just not watch it, whatever the race of the couple. And in the case of interracial kissing, and especially gay kissing, they always seem to shoot it in as intimate a way as possible, as if to squeeze the most discomfort out of the audience that they can. And I suspect that the strategy, whether it's conscious or unconscious, is to convince the audience that, well, if you're uncomfortable about this, then you're a bigot. And you know what? I think it probably works. I think a lot of people probably feel uncomfortable and they think, oh no, I must be bigoted. I find this interracial kiss uncomfortable. But of course, they never ask themselves, would I feel uncomfortable watching this same kiss shot in the same way if it were between a couple of a single race? And the answer, I suspect, most of the time would be yes. Just the way that it's being shot, right? And so their discomfort is not bigoted, but they think it is. It's sort of like a psychological trick, and I do think it works. And so this is why I hate seeing interracial couples in film, on TV, and in commercials. And it's also just a blatant virtue signal. Look how progressive we are, putting an interracial couple into this project. We're so not racist. We're super comfortable with this. I mean, it's not 1964, guys. Nobody cares anymore. And you know what? Interracial couples, they only make up a small fraction of the number of married couples in America, and yet they dominate the media. And so it's not like the producers of these projects can claim that they're trying to create a realistic depiction of America, because they're just not. They're creating an utterly distorted depiction of America. And I just find the virtue signaling, political proselytizing nature of all of this repellent. So strangely, I am all for interracial relationships in real life, but I am totally against them in fiction. Judge me as you will. Now, before you go, remember to please subscribe to my new channel, Alpha Critic. The link is in the description below. That's it for me. And remember, it is not that liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
I am eternally optimistic, and I happen to believe that we've made great progress from the days when I was young and when this country didn't even know it had a racial problem. I know those things can grow out of despair in an inner city, when there's hopelessness at home, lack of work and so forth.